Hi you guys, it's me Arden Lee. I am back with another video, and in tonight's video I've had a request for a video about the topic of how to trust the process, right? When we're in our process, doing our healing, our personal development, our spiritual growth, how do we trust what comes up for us and continue walking the path? That's a really good question. It's a tricky question because one of the things, of course, that immediately comes up is, well, what process are we trusting? How do we trust ourselves? This is really the key, you guys. How do we trust ourselves at the beginning of our journey to even know which direction to go in, which processes to even be called by? And then, of course, once we are on that journey, I can certainly attest for myself that I was getting ridiculous, remarkable synchronicities and messages from the universe that were entirely counter to the 3D reality that I was experiencing. I was getting a lot of, it's fine, just wait it out, everything is good to go, yes, you can trust this. While meanwhile, in my 3D reality, it felt like everything was falling apart. So how do you really discern, right? The first thing that's really important is let's talk about discerning for your containers. My journey was pretty unique in that I did it publicly. I posted and I wrote pretty transparently. At least semi-publicly. Anyway, there's plenty I didn't reveal, but I revealed a lot about my healing process and all the things that I was learning on my social media, particularly on my Twitter and Facebook, throughout the years that I was going through my own understanding of repatterning. I didn't even know what repatterning was at the time. I just was drawn to certain things, certain information started popping up my way, and I was working with my coach, Catherine Girardi. And but I didn't really have a container per se, or maybe I should say I had several containers. I was really I was kind of going around and doing like a smorgasbord of healing, where I was doing ceremonial work with plant medicine with one person. My friend Eurasimos, my body worker, offered me some body work sessions. I did some of those. And the whole time I was doing my own trauma research and the research that I did into everything that I have put into the curriculum of the repatterning project, so that I could learn, kind of like what happened, what got messed up along the way, like how did this happen, how did this work, and to describe that process now, looking back at it being, a good 2-3 years away from that time in my life. Wow, I was really just following the sort of clues, I was following the breadcrumbs down the rabbit hole. And I knew that to listen to my curiosity, to listen to my heart, was really the way to go. And when we talk about things like discernment and emotional self-mastery, we talk about this feeling of this spark that I kind of get in my chest. Maybe for you it's going to show up differently, but I know for me it feels like this, almost like my breath is taken away, or yes, oh, I need to do that. I talked about this in yesterday's video about watching the coming attractions for the movies, right? When you see a bunch of previews and you see a movie that you immediately want to see right away, you feel this oh my gosh, that, right? I tend to feel that way when there's a book I'm supposed to read, or a healer I'm supposed to go see, or someone I'm supposed to learn from, or even sometimes, you just get that nudge for a YouTube video you're supposed to watch or whatever. It's remarkable that when I was on this path, during that first year, when I was still really having a hard time trusting in all of the messages that I was receiving about the path that I was supposed to go on, I was full of so much doubt, so many questions, really didn't believe at the time in, not that I didn't believe in it, but just didn't have much of a frame of reference for the astral, for the magical, I'd had a couple things happen to me before in my life that were wow, that was a real coincidence, or wasn't that magical or whatever, but not this constant barrage, right? This ever-present voice there, telling me how things were gonna play out, and I was really doubtful at first. And I remember going on to YouTube and clicking through like a series of YouTube videos. I remember like I'd watch one of the videos, and I'd have a question. I'd be like, but what about this? Like, but you didn't mention this part. Like, what about that? And then like the next video that I would click on wouldn't even be by the same person, but it would answer that next question. And then the next video would answer the next question and the next question and the next question. It was like Spirit was really telling me like, look, like it was very, very clear. I've always said that going into to work with spirit or with magic, you know, whatever you want to call it, it's really great to be an open-minded skeptic, which is what I consider myself. You know, I really don't just buy into this kind of like, oh my God, I saw 11:11 on the clock. That must mean he's my twin flame. You know, like I don't take like I feel like there are a lot of there's a lot in the spiritual community that goes around of like it really feels like people are twisting things to make them into the signs that they want to be able to see, and I've never. That's never sat well with me personally for interpreting my own path. So when I ask Spirit for a clear sign, it has to come in really freaking clear, which is cool. A lot of my friends have said that I've expanded their Overton window for belief in working with magic. So in that capacity, yeah, it took me a while to sort of develop that trust, but you know, here I am several years later and the path hasn't failed me yet. You know, that's kind of what I look back at. And I think it's really worth considering, you know, it's really worth considering, like, what are you risking? What are you leaving behind? Because if you've gotten to this point where you need a process and you're on a path, a lot of us, when we begin, it's sort of like we run our ships aground, you know, we say the way that things have been up until this point in our lives is unsustainable. We cannot afford to go through another cycle of the same things. For me, leaving New York was very much that way. Leaving New York and moving to Los Angeles was, it was something that would have been very difficult for me to make, you know, a big uprooting kind of change like that when I was still really in my trauma. And I was really in my trauma when I left New York. And it would have been really difficult if it weren't for the fact that that my family left the East Coast and moved to Las Vegas. So I was like, well, I don't even have family here anymore. I was like, there's nothing here for me. I'm not dating anyone seriously. I'm not working in any capacity here that requires me to stay in New York. There's literally nothing tying me down. So it's really worth looking at, what is the cost of not trusting the process? What is the cost of not taking these steps? Do you really want to stay where you are? Sometimes acknowledging that we really don't have anything to lose by trusting the process is the best way to do it, because it's either we find out what's down the rabbit hole or we stay. And I think one of the things that is one of my best qualities, and also historically one of my most destructive, is my curiosity. I'm someone who has, you know, in the name of adventure or excitement or whatever, touched a whole lot of hot stoves, you know. And when I was in my trauma, when I was in a lot of toxic relationships, when I was in that kind of energy of desensitization, dissociation, chasing sort of reckless behavior in order to feel something, then that was bad. That was not necessarily good. Did a lot of things that could have gotten me hurt. Many that did get me hurt, you know. It all worked out, it's fine. But being on this path now, it's become sort of an asset that I have this history of really not being afraid to go hard. And the people who go hard tend to be the ones who succeed. So let's talk a little bit about what happens when you trust the path, or you trust the process, or you commit to the path and it backfires on you. Because there are plenty of people who have committed to a container, or trusted a healer, or, you know, those guru types who are out there who have then violated their trust or violated their boundaries, or done things that have made them feel unsafe. Well, first of all, that's not to be taken lightly. And if you guys have watched my channel for a while, you've known that I've spoken out about that a great deal. It's really time for us to have more and more leaders who are in their understanding of I was gonna say like in their understanding of social justice, but it's like not even a social justice issue, you guys. It's just like an empathy and kindness issue, and it's an issue of like not being in your shadow, and it's an issue of getting used to the fact that accountability is a form of radical love, and that betterment and self-improvement in your community is something that helps everyone on every level, and that just being in your ego and saying like, you know, and trying to have power over the people who are coming to you for healing or help, it's just super toxic. So anyway, there are those kinds of people out there, and I actually have dealt with some of them on my path. You know, I dealt with someone in particular who was doing ceremonial medicine work, and who violated my boundaries. And not only violated my boundaries, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt that it was an accident, you know, and I truly believe in my heart that it probably was an accident. But when I brought it to his attention, I expected that he would be like, thank you for telling me, let me fix this, let me put something in place, and like, wow, thanks, let's cooperate about this together, because I told him in what I felt was a really very cooperative fashion. And instead, he completely gaslighted me about it, and you know, like went to the community and said that I was making shit up because I wanted to date him, which was a pretty ridiculous notion, to be honest. And because whatever, you know, you guys, I wrote a book called The New Rules of Attraction when I was in my 20s, you know, all about how to get someone to want to be in a relationship with you, and accusing them of sexual assault falsely is nowhere in that book. I don't know why someone thought I would pull that out at the last minute. It's not my jam. I'm a pretty conflict avoidant person to begin with. So anyway, all of that happened, but here's what I want to say about that. That was absolutely part of my process. And the work that I did in finally communicating with him by email and writing out everything and saying, this is why this is not okay. I think that you probably don't actually know what you're doing. I think you're in shadow right now. I think you're so invested in trying to be the person that you want to be and be the healer and the leader that you want to be, that you're unwilling to look at the places where you're fucking up, dude. You know, this is stuff that you need to work through and you need to overcome and whatever. And anyway, I wrote out this email, and it was like, holy shit, I realized, I was like, this is like my graduation thesis. Like, you know, this is like my sexual assault graduation thesis, is I was able to experience a boundary violation at the hands of someone that I really deeply cared about. And I was able to hold my ground and say, no, even though I love you and I care about you and you've done so many things for me, I am not going to let you do this, because this is not healthy for me. It's not healthy for you. And if you're going to be an asshole, it's not going to be on my watch. And I'm going to explain to you why this is not okay. And then I'm going to say, you know, I can't be around you anymore until you address this and change it. And that's exactly what I did. And that was absolutely a part of my process. Oh my gosh. I feel so much peace around that whole incident because I stood up for myself and I knew what I was doing. And so if you do run into difficulty, if you do run into an unhealthy container, if you do run into a practitioner that you can't trust, I would advise you to still trust the process, but trust your process. Don't necessarily trust them. We learn discernment more and more over time because we encounter things that cause emotional reactions in us. And we get better and better at listening to our bodies. And as we tune in and as we continue to listen to our bodies, we learn more and more what, how they're communicating with us. And we learn more and more what we want to call in more of and what we want to discern away from. So yeah, if you're getting a facilitator who's like, well, if you won't let me scream in your face, you're just not trusting the process. Yeah, I would have alarm bells go off naturally. But if you're talking about you and your personal growth and going where you feel called, that's really super important. And you may feel called somewhere that ends up being more of a lesson, right? But maybe that lesson was worth it. Maybe that's something that's helpful along the way, that's going to help you to gain that knowledge and information. Edgar, can you not, please? Thank you. Good boy. Yes, you're very cute. Sorry. Edgar, you can see him in the corner of the screen. There he is right there. He's trying to mess around on my desk. Anyway, so In closing, I'll just say that it's hard to believe that change is possible. It's hard to believe that there are steps out, when you're stuck. But if you keep following those things and you keep going to the places where you're called, going to, watch the content you're called to watch, signing up for the containers that you're called to sign up for, working with the facilitators that you feel called to work with, working with spirit in the ways that you feel called to work with, working whatever it is, in the same way that medicine songs can come in any genre. Our healing can come in so many different forms. Our growth can come in so many different forms. I've had, remarkable lessons in, handling quantum time shifts, timeline shifts, etc. From, watching Netflix shows. It's whatever, it's however it shows up at the time. So, our bodies are rarely wrong. And I even just put that caveat of rarely in there because sometimes we do get triggered, and if our alarm bells are going off, or conversely, if we're desensitized and no alarm bells are going off anywhere, then yeah, it's hard to trust that. But the more that we listen to our bodies, as I talked about in yesterday's video, the more that we open up that dialogue so our bodies start to talk to us more, the more clearly we're going to hear them. And in that case, I'm trying to think if there's a time in the last 3 years or so that I've followed my body and been wrong. And I'm coming up with very few. I signed up for a CBD MLM because someone who was very charismatic convinced me that was a good idea. That, I about broke even on that. It wasn't a great idea, but that was one time when I was listening to their enthusiasm and charismatic way of selling me on it. And yeah, that didn't pan out. But that might be the only time that I felt something in my body and I went for it, and it didn't serve me in some way or another. So yeah, I'm just here to kind of say that, look for the containers where, especially, this is very important. I should have said this at the beginning. Look for the containers and look for the people who are getting the results that you want, and then follow in those steps, or, of course, follow the call of your heart too, because your own journey, your own path is going to be unique, but you're going to see all of these branches along the way as you're walking. This person has gotten this thing that you're interested in. This person has this thing, and you just follow those things. You follow those things that you want. You follow all those little pathways. You manage your bandwidth, accordingly. You decide where you need to prioritize things. For me, prioritizing my trauma healing was really foundational, and then prioritizing my band, my artistry, my work in the world, my finances, all those stacks kind of layered on after that. So there's never been a time, as I said, that really trusting that has not panned out. And hopefully you can also ask a number of people in the repatterning parlor who have been doing this work for a while, especially the repatterning project grads who have gone on this container and sailed that ship with us. Ask them too. Ask them how that process has been for them. A lot of people have been posting about their experiences lately, which is so dope. I'm so excited to, in reading how everyone has had things unfolding for them even long after the course is over. It's really exciting, the kind of quantum exponential way that work takes shape. So I hope that was helpful. Yeah, what are you gonna do? Not trust the process? I'm trying to is there anything that I want to say, in conclusion, talking about trusting the process? Yeah, what's your alternative? Your alternative is to stay where you are and continue getting the same results. So you might as well take action, any action. And if you get a response or reaction, or you open a door that you didn't want to open, then you listen to your body and you discern away from that. And and you assimilate that lesson and you continue to move on into the other directions that call you. All right, thank you guys. I appreciate your paying attention, and reach out to me if you want to join me. And everyone who has signed up for the summer 2019 edition of the Repatterning Project, so stoked to see all the amazing results people are going to get. So excited to guide another group through this amazing process. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you next time.